Hello everyone, and welcome to Biopedia. This week, I'm going to veer away from the microbiological topics we've been focusing on for the past few episodes and steer us towards an ecological concept which can help scientists visualize the process of evolution, namely the adaptive landscape. So, some background. Evolution is essentially a game of fitness. This is a measure of how suited to an environment a particular phenotype makes an organism. By extension, it measures how likely an organism is to successfully reproduce. If an organism is not well suited to its environment, it will consequently be less likely to survive long enough to reproduce. The adaptive landscape model is essentially a graph which plots fitness on the y-axis and the phenotype for a particular trait on the x-axis. For example, this could be different sizes of beaks for a bird. It shows biologists how suited each phenotype is to its environment. The higher the y value is, the more suited to the environment an organism with a particular variation of the trait being measured will be. Now, try and think of evolution as the process of organisms moving along the graph. The phenotype of a species may change. For example, beak size may grow larger or smaller for a particular bird. The end result relative to the graph that is important for the organism is, does it increase or decrease the fitness? Essentially, you can visualize this as organisms moving along the x-axis as they mutate, and subsequently shifting on the y-axis because of the line already present, documenting which trait is going to result in which fitness level. Although evolution is a blind process, we can visualize it as all life trying, in air quotes, to get to the optimal phenotype for a particular trait. This would be known as the adaptive peak, the highest y value on the graph. Once this happens, evolution for this particular trait theoretically stops, as there is no improvement left to make. After all, for an organism to move away from the peak, it would be moving down the fitness curve, with a lower y value, becoming less adapted to the environment, and thereby not being as successful as other members of the species who still have this optimum phenotype. They would then essentially be outcompeted. But what happens if there's more than one peak? This would be called a rugged adaptive landscape, where there are many phenotypes that might be local adaptive peaks, but are not necessarily the best phenotype possible across the entire range. This situation would be visualized as a graph with multiple peaks, but one peak which is higher than the others. This situation leads to organisms becoming stuck, if you will, at a suboptimal phenotype, due to the fact that, once their phenotype has reached one of these local peaks, to get to the higher peak, they would have to move down with a lower y value again, into an adaptive valley. This would be a bit like evolutionary suicide for an organism. These rugged adaptive landscapes with several different peaks can lead to adaptive radiation, as organisms adapt to many different niches as a result of not being able to converge on one optimal phenotype. If you're interested, there is the title of a paper by Martin and Wainwright from 2013 in the description, which covers this process with a particular organism. With all of this said, keep in mind that this does not mean organisms are trying to get to one of these peaks. It just means that organisms closer to the optimal phenotype are likely to be more reproductively successful than those that are not, creating a bias towards a better suited phenotype. Evolution is a blind process, but this can help us to visualize it a bit more easily. There are still other topics related to this which I've not yet covered, such as the different types of selection, but as usual, I'm going to leave that for a separate episode. As always, thank you for listening. If you have any comments, questions, or topic suggestions, feel free to get in touch at biopediapodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, have a great week, everyone.